A very warm welcome to you on the Media Talk series with me, Adebisi Adetunji. This is where we talk about everything media. The objective of this Media Talk series is to inspire, motivate, create a platform for peer learning, a platform for bringing experts in the different aspects of the media industry, so that whether you are working with the traditional media, TV, radio, or you are in the digital space, we are all actually on the digital space now. It is interconnected. You can take away lessons, knowledge, experiences that will help you evolve and grow in your career. And every now and then, every time on this show, I bring in someone in the space to share their experience, their story, their expertise, their learnings, their challenges, and how they walk through these challenges to do much more for themselves, to have grown up until where they are now. On this episode of the Media Talk series, I have a friend in the house. He is known as Oluwaseun Akinola. He calls himself Akinola. He calls himself Akinola. And we have actually come a long way with this gentleman, and he has a wealth of experience to share, even though he doesn't think so. But you're going to see the reason why. You're going to see the reason why I said he has a wealth of experience. Oluwaseun Akinola, you're welcome to the show Media Talk series.
Thank you, Adebisi. I feel privileged, honored to be among the pantheon of important media personalities that you brought on this platform. It's a privilege, it's an honor. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. So let's get to know you a little bit. Let's get to know a little bit about Oluwaseun Akinola. Who is Oluwaseun Akinola? I'd like to just read a bit of his profile and experience. Oluwaseun Akinola is an experienced, creative, and resourceful radio producer, news anchor, voiceover actor, media content developer, community radio facilitator, and trainer with a cross-genre of experience that spans about 18 years. 18 years is a lot of time. And Oluwaseun Akinola has produced and anchored several radio shows, development content, feature and documentary, and particularly radio drama, where he has played different roles. He is actually a great and very versatile radio drama actor. He studied English language at the University of Ibadan with a master's degree from the University of Jos. He holds a certificate in presentation from the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria Training School, Farm Radio International. So right about now, Akinola, tell us how your journey into the media space started. Was this something you had always wanted to do? What inspired you to start a career in the media industry, in the media space?
Well, I think a lot of things were responsible for my incursion into the media space. After my NYC, I became a trainer in actually a theological institute. You won't believe it, theological seminary. So I was training.
Interesting.
I was training pastors, missionaries, and teachers in Equa Theological Seminary in Jos, actually. So, but while I was in Jos, I was a very ardent radio listener. You'd say I listened to radio a lot. So I heard that Ray Power was coming to Jos, and so I walked up to the radio station in Jos for auditioning. So I walked up to the people there and said, I want to work with radio. And they gave me a script to read. I read. And the gentleman I met, I can't remember his name, but I remember this story very well. So he said that you read very well, but I have a mandate to take people from a particular catchment area for that radio station. So it has to be people from, say, Nasarawa, Abuja, Niger, Jos, who within that North Central, the people that he had a mandate to employ. Then again, I also couldn't speak Hausa fluently. To become a radio anchor in that environment, you need to also be able to speak Hausa, because that's the language, the lingua franca of the community. So he now posed a challenge to me and said, look, you said you are from the Southwest. I said, yes. He said, so go to OGBC, go and try your skill there and see if you can become a radio presenter. That you should go there. That's where you should go, since you are from that area. And so summer that year, I decided to travel home to see my parents. And so I went to Abeokuta to see my younger brother. And incidentally, he was doing his internship with OGBC. So I went to visit him. And there he took me to one of the managers there and said that my brother is interested in radio. And he said, okay, take him to the newsroom, let them give him a script, and then he should read. Let's see if he's trainable. And so they gave me a script to read. I could say to myself that I love reading, public reading. So it wasn't a big deal for me to read anywhere I found myself. So he gave me a script. I went into the studio, I read, and after reading, Bolale Karim then was the head of presentation of OGBC. So she wrote something in the paper and folded it and gave to me to give to the director. So the director opened the paper. I didn't open it while I was going up to see him. So he opened it and said, Oluwa trainable. I don't know what is in that paper. So he said, Oluwa trainable. Okay, sir. So he said, that is a good way to start. If the head of presentation says you are trainable, it means that you have something to offer the industry. So he said, if you are interested, this is the process. You come to sit in, and we see if we can give you a spot amongst the readers in the station. You get trained. So they call it sitting in. I was a lecturer. Let me put it that way, because I was already running my master's and I was lecturing, and I wanted to be on radio. So to say, I wanted to be on radio. So I left that job, a well-paying job, and I left it, came back to Southwest, and I joined them. I was training. At a point, my parents were not happy with me. My mother said, look, you have been giving me money. You have been doing very well. How come you want to just start like a loner, a loafer? I will come
and something that is not bringing much money or anything at all.
So I was not paid. I was not getting salary. I was just going to the studio, sit in with newsreaders, announcers, and so my mother said, you better leave this your misadventure and go and find a job, because I can't be giving you money right now. I have your brothers to train in school. That got me. So I stopped coming back home. So I stayed in Abeokuta with my sister, with my auntie, my aunt then. So, but to cut that long story short, one day I was in the studio for night shift, and then I saw an announcement, a PPA, an announcement, public service announcement. I saw it. I was supposed to read it in the morning. So I saw that they were looking for English language teachers. They were looking for science teachers and the rest in a school. The school was Omolaja Secondary School in Olukolobo. So I did something very funny. I read part of the PPA, but I did not read English language actually, because I wanted to go and take that spot. So in the morning,
you only read the Yoruba.
I read the other side, so I did not read that they were looking for English language teacher. So I said to myself that I was going to take that spot. So I went there actually. So I went there. I went to the school, and the principal. I was interviewed with the other people around there. So I was interviewed. So he said, I like the way you speak English, and I think you should be able to train our children in English language. And I told him that I was also a teacher in a school. So he gave me the job right there. But
Oh,
after giving
wow.
me that job, right there at the interview panel room, he said, "You have the job." So after the interview, I sat down, waited for him. So he said, "Why are you still around?" I said, "I have something to tell you." So he said, "Okay, come to the office." So I went to his office and I said, "Sir, I will take this job and I want it. I'm taking the job because I wanted to get an income." I told him
Yeah.
that I am working as an intern, so to say, with OGBC, and that I read news. He was angry, like, "Oh, I want somebody who can concentrate. You don't look like somebody who will concentrate this way if you're going to be doing OGBC." And then, so I said, "So put me on probation. Just put me on probation. Watch me for the next 1-2 months, and before you can make your final decision about me. But I promise that I will resume on time. I will close what I'm supposed to close, but just know that I will be doing night shift with OGBC." So I told my supervisors at OGBC that I now got a job as a teacher since you guys are not paying me. But I will. So you put my shift for night shift and then maybe morning during the weekends. I was juggling between those two, and I will always be at the school by 7 a.m. in the morning. Sometimes when I do night shift, I will leave OGBC then and get to the school. So to cut the long story short again, that was how I got into OGBC. And President Banky Ademola eventually saw me as someone that she could employ. That was when Osumba Gadane was the governor of Ogun State. And she said, I'm going to make sure that you get employment. And then she got me an employment with OGBC.
And that was how your journey began. You know what I pick? This is so profound. What I'm picking and I'm hearing from you is, if you want it badly, what price are you willing to pay for your dreams and your goal? You left lecturing in Jos to come to OGBC in Abeokuta. You left a paying job to follow after your passion and your dream. Is it safe to say then that if you must practice in the media industry profession, you have to be passionate about the space, about working in the space?
Yes, I will say yes to that. Absolutely. For people that I've met on this job who excel, that I also could say are precursors, I could see in them a lot of passion, I've seen them a lot of dedication, I've seen them a lot of tenacity for the job. They were not being paid handsomely. I could mention a lot of names of people that I encountered. On OGBC, I still remember Adeni Oladeshelu. I remember Bolanle Karim. I remember Tony Shobeson, and a host of other people. Great people, but they were just simple people. But you will see that they are passionate. They'll be at home very early in the morning. They don't leave the studio late in the evening, and they are there every day of the week. We did not go for holiday. We're not going for break. We're not going for what do you call public holidays. We're always just there.
Always on duty.
As you are done with one, you're thinking about the next one. So I discovered that it's a cycle that if you are not passionate, you cannot survive. As you are done with the show, you're thinking of the next show.
Yeah, exactly. So the media profession comes with passion, and there's also the demand side of the job. You are on a creative mode, activated 24/7, 7 days a week. As soon as you finish one show, you go to the next show. I know your career has taken you through, OGBC, then the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, and you once, read the news on the network service of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. And I've known you to be a very versatile presenter in terms of when you handle a show, an interview show, your interviewing skill is top notch. And that's what I want us to narrow down, into before we talk about other aspects of your journey, coming back to how you've navigated and walked through and grown. Can you share with us, before we come to interviewing skills, how would you say that you have grown? How have you been able to evolve and grown as a media professional and practitioner?
Okay.
What are the things you have put in place that has helped you to have come this far? You are now head of a station, head of programs
Yeah.
unit
Yeah.
in Splash FM, and you've been with them, and you also rose to the peak of your time, your profession in Radio Nigeria. I mean, if once you've read the network news, what else as a news reader, presenter? So tell us, how have you been able to evolve and navigate to grow to where you are now in the profession?
Okay, so thank you for that question. I will approach that question from a very simple perspective. Uh, this is Oluwaseun that started reading PPA. My first time of reading PPA was in 2006. I think it was September 2006, sometime in September 2006. And my first script, I was screaming. I mean, I was literally screaming in the studio, like
with excitement.
yes.
That you are reading. A PPA is an announcement for those who don't know.
Yeah, so
an announcement.
So Tony Shuberson said, "You don't have to scream. That's a microphone before you. So don't scream." So that's the guy who had screamed, or his first time, and then now he found his voice. Now he understood how to use his voice on radio. So now I think I will say that I started off with the interest of reading news. That was my major interest. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to just be a news reader. So I admire people that read the news. I remember that I used to listen to Radio Nigeria Network News at 7 p.m., 7 a.m., and 10 p.m. And I love all the news readers there when they read the news. So incidentally, Mrs. Abiodun Ogida came to Adebisi one day and asked me a question. She said, "What's your biggest dream, in this media space?" And I said that I hope that one day I will read the network news of Radio Nigeria. And she laughed and said, "You are in Adebisi, you want to read network news in Radio Nigeria?"
He must be joking.
How do you actually want to do that? So I wanted to read the news. However, I was told and trained that I'm supposed to be a broadcaster, not just an on-air personality or a presenter, but a broadcaster, someone who will know a lot about public communication. So that is the basis for whatever I do on radio. I'm a public communicator. I am speaking to the public. I am speaking to public development, people, development, societal growth. And so that was what I was trained to do. So I grew from just wanting to read the news to every time I'm on radio, even if it's my musical show, even if it's my late night show, it's get towards public communication, societal development, and change. You want people to change from one point to another. You want to communicate with them. So that was the basis for which I was trained. So on the job, I was told all of these. And so for every time you package a program or you produce or you're going to do an interview, your mindset is, what will the public want to know? And so I've grown from that rookie who just wanted to read the news, who was screaming, to someone who understands that I'm speaking to the public. I am contributing my quota to society development. So I've grown to also be able to discuss salient political issues, and also grown to do interviews. So interview governors, interview ministers, interview people in the society who have done very well for themselves. So I would say I've grown from that lowly part to the peak of the career. Like you said, I've also read the news to the point where I was able to achieve that dream. But I said, I wish I had a bigger dream, maybe BBC or something bigger than Network Service or Radio Nigeria. But but I was able to achieve those things that I actually put down. So my bottom line is that I was just one guy who was conscious of where he was going and what he wanted to do. And I remember that I had in my head the journey that I was embarking upon, and I know clearly what I want to do. So I'll say to myself that now I'm reading the news on top of the hour, but I'm sure that in the next 4 weeks I should be reading the major news. And the next 8 weeks, I should be on the OGBC newspaper headlines. I mean, these were things that I'd planned out for myself. So I was following up and seeing how I would meet up with these deadlines and how I would be able to achieve these things. And I mean, glory to God that I was able to achieve them. And one day I sat down in my room and I said, I want to be on the program, the flagship program of OGBC then. It was on Sunday morning and it was anchored by the great Peter Okodwa. I mean, those who know OGBC, when they hear the voice of Peter Okodwa, they know that it was one of the greatest anchor on OGBC. And so I said to myself that I want to anchor his program someday. You know, and so I just said it, and I have an attitude. I will write the things that I want to do in a diary or in a paper on my notepad. I'll write it down like I want to achieve. I believe that when I write those things down, I will achieve them as I move on. And so one day, Peter Okodwa had some issues and he couldn't come for his program. And the producer called me and said, "Seun, you want to match the program, Peter Okodwa, Lord, just Sunday." You know, that was how Mobolaji told me that day. And I was shocked. You know, one of the guests I interviewed at the time, when it was the MBA chair, was Oluwaseun Akinola, the late governor of Ondo State. I remember I interviewed him on OGBC when he was the NBA chair. I remember I interviewed music greats as well, you know, a lot of them. So I had in my head what I wanted to do. I project and I follow it up. When I came to Radio Nigeria, Premier FM, my sole aim was to read the network news of Radio Nigeria. That was the only reason I came to Radio Nigeria. And so I was happy. After a few months, they had this network service from Southwest, from North Central, and the rest. And in no time, I mean, I was drafted to join the corps to contribute at 7 a.m., you know, there. And I was excited, like, okay, this thing is happening.
It's happening.
And then, yes, and then one day I remember that Mr. Gabriel Rofurume called me and said, "Oh my God, Abuja." You know, like they sent the letter here that you should come to Abuja. And I mean, I was invited, and that was it. So I had in my, and the day I read that news, it was a 10 p.m. news, my first time. It was a 10 p.m. news. I mean, the day I read that news, I felt like, look, I'm done with broadcasting here. If today they say, go home, don't do broadcasting again, I will just be fulfilled that, okay, I did this thing. And I read it. I said I read with Nura Mohammed, Patseneze, and a host
the
of
veterans.
other. Yeah,
All
so
the veterans.
I mean, with the socials, every of the great people on that belt, I interacted with them, and so I was excited. So I grew. So I'll say I've grown. Now after that, I began to think in my head that, okay, so there are discussions that I wanted to have, there are conversations that I want to have that. I mean, maybe Nigeria may not give me the chance to have them. There are things that I like to do, but I mean, I'm grateful to Radio Nigeria. I'm grateful to the management of that institution for the opportunity given to me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm extremely grateful, and I'm proud to be part of that institution. So
Yeah.
I'm extremely proud that I was on Radio Nigeria and the grew from obscurity to that national limelight where I could read network news in Abuja. However, I wanted more. I wanted a liberalized space, a space where I'll be able to run conversations as I wanted it, that I'll be able to, speak truth to power without looking back, without looking at my back or be afraid of anything, you know.
Of stepping on anyone's toes.
Yeah. So when I got back from Abuja to Ibadan, I listened to Edmond Obilo a few times, and I said, okay, this is the kind of conversation I like to have. I love this guy's conversation, so I'm looking forward to it. And then, I mean, George, my friend, George, so gave me that hint about Splash FM, and I said, okay, I can move. If I went there proudly, I would say, because even at my interview with the COO then, I was telling her that I'm not looking for a job. I've got a job that if you guys want me, you have to pay for me to come here.
You were even posing for them.
Yeah, so I remember that I was telling her, I'm not going to work during weekends. I'm not going to do night shift. I was saying, and she was like, "What's your problem?" This guy, I said,
Are you
"Look,"
serious?
I said, "I am serious." That so she said something. She said, "Look, what gives you this confidence?" I said, "I can read news better than your best in this building." So he called the Italy. I said, well, look, come here, oh."
This guy taught me what I know.
This guy taught me this thing. So I would say I've grown. So when I joined the private radio station, the private space, I also learned that you cannot be narrow-minded in your approach to the profession. You have to expand your horizon. So I will say this publicly here. I'm also grateful to the person interviewing me. She brought a lot of the things I did not know about myself out of me. I mean, Adebisi will give me a script and say, "Come and read the script, come and act this character." And I never knew that I had it. I had in me that I could act, in that manner. So my journey to even radio drama was through Adebisi. I must say that I owe that to you. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, most welcome. Our very, very naughty character in all our radio drama.
So I got a lot of things on my journey. So what I always say to people that I train is, look, to be a broadcaster is different from being an OAP or a presenter or a celebrity. A broadcaster is a public communicator. Is one who has a lot of responsibility on his shoulder or her shoulder, who is speaking to the public, and his aim to see that the public in society is developed. It's not a celebrity that wants to tear the society apart. I mean, you are responsible. You know that this society is given to you to nurture. So a broadcaster nurtures the society, helps society to grow, break conversations that are necessary for development of the society. He informs in a matured manner. He corrects in a decent way. He or she is aim for him is to see that the society is developed. That's basically what you are there to do. Not yes, you are an influencer. I mean, because you let people also know how to pronounce words. You let people know how to do a lot of things that they probably don't know, information, history, and the rest. However, you are not to be irresponsible on air. You're supposed to be responsible. So those were my growth trajectory. So I go to the point where I now train people to be a broadcaster. I'm grateful for all the people that I've met, for all the training I've got.
Who have mentored you along the way.
I also ventured into the non-governmental organization space, the civil society organization, through
development space.
Development spaces. Thank you for that. So I ventured into that at a point where I was able to do community radio training. I was able to help in establishing community radio in Bayelsa, in Port Harcourt, and River State at a particular time in my career. I also discovered that I could translate, and this is something that is very important. I will say this, I met a lot of people in my journey. One of the people that I met that left a great mark on me was Kolawole Olawi. Kolawole Olawi was one mysterious presenter that captured the entire southwestern region at a time when I was growing in broadcast space. So one day, so I had the duty. I was always on duty Friday evening, and his program was, I think, 8:05 p.m. on Friday till 10. So I will read the news at 8, the news highlight at 8, and then sign him on at a time on OGBC. So we get to talk. And so one day he said, "Look, you should be speaking Yoruba. You are a Yoruba boy. Yoruba. Try and speak Yoruba. Try and be conscious of your language. That you will make money when you speak Yoruba." And truth was that my first sponsor program was in Yoruba. So I began to speak Yoruba. I began to be conscious of reading Yoruba script, writing Yoruba script. And so it became useful for me when I now got to Radio Nigeria, where I had to read Yoruba script I had to even act Yoruba drama. I had to even translate for organizations. So I translated for IITA. Converted their research documentation and into Yoruba communications documents. So
Wow, wow,
it was
wow, wow,
so,
wow. So
so it was really a
it's really it's been really a journey for you. I hear you, your intentionality. You have been very intentional in your career, your media career journey. You've always been able to see the next thing that you want to do, you know, and then you have always been willing to put in the work. You have evolved and put allowed yourself to grow such that you became versatile in not just the English language. You are also able to communicate well in the mother tongue, which is Yoruba, the Yoruba language. So I see you are a news reader, news presenter, like you put it, public communicator. We as broadcasters are public communicators. Whether you are in broadcast journalism or print, you are a print journalist or print communicator or the digital as it were. We are all interacting. All the channels are interacting. We are first of all public communicators. I like what I've heard about your journey, the determination to pursue what you wanted, and not just you didn't just stop, satisfied at a certain level. You were willing to go further. I will take a quick break. I'll be back shortly when I will ask Oluwaseun Akinola to share with us the strategies for effective interviewing. We'll be right back.
All right. Thank you.
So now, Sheun, you are the host of the conversations, and you've talked about the fact that you wanted a platform where you could express yourself. You have interfaced and interviewed, policymakers, the who is who, ministers, people that matter, influencers in our society, of course, for social change, being a very passionate development communicator yourself. Now, how can media professionals navigate the very shaky waters of being professional at interviewing? Because again, I know we can't deal with all of that. This is like a whole training manual. But I just want us to touch, on the basics. To be effective interviewers, you are anchoring a program, a show. How can we be effective as presenters or anchors of shows and programs instead of just making it all muddy? We see a lot of things these days that leaves much to be desired, and you wonder where did this person get training? Or sometimes people are just passionate, but they don't know how to do it well. Can you just share with us, a little bit about interviewing skills for media professionals who anchor shows, who anchor programs?
Thank you. Thank you, Adebisi. Interview is an art by which you want to get information from the mind of your subject matter, the interviewee. And it requires a lot of preparation. So you need to prepare thoroughly for an interview session. First in your preparation is to have an objective in your mind. What do you want to achieve with this interview? What do you want to get out of this interview? What is your aim? What is the end point of speaking with this person? Is there something you want the public to know? Is there something you want them to say? Is there something you want them to unravel? Is there something you want them to explain? You must have that in your mind. So it will help you in crafting your questions. So you also need to research your guest. You need to know. Some people don't know that. You need to know if your guest had given interview somewhere before. Is he a fast talker? Is he a slow talker? Is he an
Yeah.
aggressive person? Is he someone who is easily, or who is someone that does not talk enough when you interview them? I had the misfortune of interviewing a security expert one day who answered in yes and no. It was a security advisor to Governor Benga Daniel. So every question I ask him, he say, Mr. Akinola, is a security matter. Yes, we're working on it, and that's it. So in a 30 minute interview session, he ended all my 8 questions in 7.5 minutes. And
Oh
so,
wow.
and it
You were
was a
left
live
stranded.
and it was a live program. So if I had researched that person, I would have had more questions to ask him than what I prepared, to ask. So you need to craft your questions in such a way that you understand the person you want to interview or you are speaking with. It's critical. It's very, very important. Now, so you research the guest. You must craft thoughtful questions. Thoughtful. When I say thoughtful questions, I mean questions that will elicit responses from the guest, not questions that will make them say yes or no. Questions that will make them discuss the thing that you're asking them. And so you don't allow your questions to be too long so that they don't lose their train of thought. You don't make your question double barrel, like 2, 3, 4
Yeah.
questions in one sentence. No,
Yeah.
make each question clear as you ask them. So you write your questions down. You also must be an active listener if you want to have a good interview. You must be able to listen, because I notice, even right now we're having an interview, I notice that you are taking notes of things that I'm saying. And
Yes. Yes.
so a good interviewer has his notes by his or her side and is taking notes of what the guest is saying, so you can do a follow-up question on what they were discussing. So you must be an active listener. When you are interviewing someone, it's not the time you'll be checking your WhatsApp messages or you are going to be on Google and be distracted. So you avoid distraction. So as you interview, you engage the guest responses clinically. You maintain eye contact and ask follow-up questions in an interview session. Because if you're not listening to them, they might even say things that will put you in trouble. Or say
Yeah.
things that will get
Yeah.
you into trouble when you listen back and you discover that you were not listening, to what they were saying. You also see gaps. So I mean, you could probably be listening to an interview session on television and you are in your seat and you are saying, why is this interviewer not following up with this thing that this man just said?
Yeah.
And so you are screaming in your head, and as you are screaming, you just hear the presenter ask that question. It means that was an active listener who was listening to what the guest was saying. So you follow up with the guest responses. Ask open-ended questions. That's what I always tell people. Questions like why, questions like when, questions like how. The W, 5W, and H should be
Yeah.
the guiding principle. Ask questions, don't explain. Sometimes we
Oh
are caught
yeah.
in explaining our questions. No, ask the question, why did you decide to leave the political party? When did you make up your mind to leave the political party? So
Yeah.
ask the question. Don't explain the question to him. Don't go into speaking and then they lose their train of thought. Your job is to ask question, and please ask the question. So again, because of the way we were trained, you create a comfortable atmosphere for your guests. I see a lot of people interrogate their guests on radio and television
As
rather
if
than
they are standing in court.
yes. So
You
you
know.
put it to them. You ask them question like you want them to confess, like you're a mother confessor, and then you want them to confess their sin to you. No, you
You
make them
know.
comfortable. You make your guests comfortable, put the guests at ease with a friendly demeanor, and make sure that they are able to answer your question. You could even get hostile guests. I mean, I've had to host very hostile persons. By the time we're done with the interview, they will be smiling. I'll make sure that they smile. For yes, I mean, I'll make sure they smile. I remember my first time of interviewing the late Abiola Ajimobi. It was a very rancorous situation. And he was angry. He was visibly angry because the person who invited him was not on seat to interview him. We were just drafted to come interview him. And I said, Your Excellency, wouldn't you want to speak to your own people who have been waiting to hear you?
Yeah.
Rather than be angry about the anchor who was not here, that the people of Oyo State are ready to listen to you and they're waiting. So wouldn't you want to speak to your own people? That got him. I said, all right, let's hear what you have to say. Before we ended that interview, I mean, late Governor Ajimobi twice commended myself and Michael, for a great job that day because we made him comfortable. He was angry, but we doused the tension and allowed him to express himself freely for 2 good hours. That at the end he said, "Don't people have more time? Because I've not said what I wanted to say."
Because it was conversational, he was at ease, and you
Yes,
were on top of your game, you were
yes,
professional about it, So
yes,
I love that part of the power of persuasion,
yeah,
managing your guests, managing the tension that can sometimes be there. You don't have to escalate the tension. As a
no,
good host and interviewer, you should be able to manage your guest and manage um, the emotional space, if you like,
mhm,
of your interview.
mhm, yeah,
You shouldn't lose control. And I like that you were able to use the power of persuasion.
persuasion,
You were able
yeah,
to douse the tension, and you were able to take charge. And also, professional. You were professional. If you were not professional, I doubt if the governor will have stayed for those 2 hours. You
no,
were professional, and you were. I think you had prepared yourself for a day such as that.
we
And
knew.
yeah.
I actually knew that. I mean, that particular incident was a watershed in my experience as a radio anchor. I knew that this was a man who would be angry because the man who invited him was not going to be available. And so he was going
Mm.
to see strange faces. That was the first time I was going to meet him one on one. And so he looked at me and said, I don't even know you. And I said, My name is Oluwaseun Akinola.
Yes,
Um,
you introduced yourself. You
I
stepped in.
said, Yes.
So
I said,
another thing I pick from that is be ready to step in and show up. Don't
Yes.
shrink back. Step in
No.
and step up and show
So,
up.
so an interviewer, so as I was saying, an interviewer is in charge of the interview session. And so you do not allow your guest take over the session from you. I see a lot of things like that happening. And you must put your foot down, and tell them that, look, I'm asking the question here without being rude. And so you tell the man that, see, in this session, I'm the one asking the question. So when I ask the question, I'll be very glad that you answer my question and then we can move on. So when they say, hey, let me ask you a question, you respectfully tell them that, look, the question and answer session is from here to here, not from there to this place. And
Yeah.
I'll give you
Yes.
the question and I will be glad that you could answer me. So that is how to approach everything. And I always tell people, your response to issue should not be determined by the attitude of the other person to you. It should be determined by your personality and what you want to achieve with the interaction. So I'm not going to let someone who is badly raised, make me become badly raised, as it were. So I will approach it with equanimity, demeanor that shows that I am mature, I have class, panache, and I am able to handle my situation without showing air of anger. When you have
Or
things like
superiority, just because you are
also,
the one asking the
yeah,
question.
because yeah.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
yeah, so then I will also say that if you are doing interview, ensure that you use clear and concise language. Do not venture into ambiguity. So when you hear your guest saying, "Could you repeat the question? I did not get the question," it means you are not clear. So we do well to write our questions down as much as we can and ask them in clear manner. Now, I always love a conversational interview like the one we are having now.
Yes.
Rather than a stilted, a very, you know, be flexible, be flexible. Make it that you are having a chat with that person and let the person feel at home, telling you everything. Now, it does not mean that when you have to get very important issues out of the interviewee, you are not going to be firm. You're going to be very firm. Sometimes they evade questions. So you also should be on your guard to know that if they evade your question, be outspoken enough to say, "Sir, you have not answered this question. Could you approach this question?" Because some of the things that their trainer, I'll say this here, that the trainer of these important persons train them is that waste the time of the anchor when you don't want to answer a particular question. So be on guard. Know that you might be wasting your time. It might be doing circumlocution. They call it circumlocution. You'll just be moving around the circle and not
Going
touching the
around
question.
and dodging the question.
So, yeah, so find the convenient space to say, "Sir, I was actually asking you to explain why you made this decision earlier. I just wanted to know why you made the decision." So you say, "Look, I'm going there." I said, "No, just go there now, so that
And he's
because of
still going.
so you need to be wary of them managing your time for you. You will have to manage your time yourself. So don't allow them to take over the interview from you. So I believe that if you have an aim and then you have been able to achieve your aim, I mean, your interview will be successful. Most times, when you don't aim at something, you hit nothing. That's why some interviews are just empty because they do not have an aim. I remember that when you sent me the invitation for this, you already put there the two things that I should be talking about. And when I chatted you earlier, I said I don't know what to say because I was thinking, do I have anything to say about this thing that to talk about? But really, you have objective, you know where you're going, and just go there rather than moving around. Most times people don't know how to manage time. And so they
Yeah.
waste time, and then when their interview is about to close, you see them fidgeting and saying, our time has gone. What were you looking? You know, that the
Abby,
time.
what were you looking at, as we say?
What were you looking at? I mean, what exactly were you looking at?
Were
At the
you
time,
doing?
yeah, what were you doing that the time had to be spent in such a way that it flew by and you didn't achieve your aim? So it's important that you are a manager of time. I mean, a manager of resources. So you manage the time. You know that you have a limited time to be on the show, and so don't paraphrase. Ask your questions straight. And be point blank about it. You could even ask your most important questions earlier in the interview, so the person knows that this one is a serious interviewer. It's not just here to play.
Excellent, excellent. We cannot exhaust interviewing skills, on this short chat. Maybe I'm going to bring you back for a training session, or
I'll be glad.
we're going to have we are developing some courses, media courses on the websites we are developing. So maybe you do a course on interviewing skills for media professionals, how to be impactful, how to take charge, how to get the answers, how to achieve your objective. I think we're going to be having that soon and putting it as one of the resources on
I'll
the ABC BZB media platform.
be
It's
honored.
it's 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 been an interesting conversation. Before I let you go, give us an instance of one challenge you have faced in your career as a media professional and how you navigated that. Just be as down to earth. Just one, you can just share one example and how you navigated. I mean, everything didn't just happen. You didn't just arrive where you are now.
Oh,
So
nah.
just share a bit of that for someone
Well,
that is watching and is probably thinking, my journey is not as rosy as I'm listening to or I'm watching right now.
no. Well, I mean, a lot of low points. I mean, really, a lot of low points. But I'll start from OGBC, really. When I just started off as a newbie, I remember, I will not mention her name, one of our senior presenters. I mean, you can imagine someone came to you. I'm sure she will never remember she said that to me. But she said that whenever I hear your voice on radio, I put off the radio. Um,
Wow.
that that was a point where I felt like I should just run back. Now, I have a story, a short story. So that day when she said that to me, I was going back home, and then I saw an inscription on a wall that says, "Don't stay where you are being tolerated. Go to where you are being celebrated."
Oh, wow.
So that inscription further made me to think I should leave broadcasting. Like, I mean, is it that we're just
Oh,
tolerating
wow.
me? So it was a combination of circumstances. So she said that to me that day, and I went to see Aladeshelu maybe 2 days after, and I told him that this is what this woman said to me. And then he said, and I will never forget. And he said, look, Shehu, uh, people have different approaches to criticism. That she wanted to criticize your work and she didn't know how to do it. So he gave an analogy. He said, you could have a fly on the wall and
Yeah.
someone could use a piece of paper or a notepad to hit the fly on the wall and kill it, while someone will carry a hammer to want to kill a fly on the wall. So he
Mm.
said, you will have to grow thick skin for people who want to criticize what you do. That you will grow better if you get people criticizing you, and telling you that these things you are doing, you're not doing well, and finding a way to do it better. So I said, I will make this place where I will be celebrated and not tolerated. So we had that conversation, and I determined, said, look, here I will be celebrated, and I will not just be tolerated. And so I'm going to do everything. So I said, when my colleagues are taking one step, I'll be taking 2 steps, 3 steps, and I'm going to catch up with these people. I'm also going to surpass them. So I was old enough to make all of those decisions in my head and walk around them. So it wasn't easy. I had to manage teaching in secondary school and working on radio at the same time. I lost a relationship because of that, because I had no time for relationship at the time.
For
So
your love life, it
I
suffered.
mean,
Oh,
yeah, so I lost a lot of things, but I wanted to make something out of that career, and so I concentrated more on doing it. So I was doing morning in the school and then going to work on radio in the night. It was exhausting.
I wanted to
Exactly.
say that that's a
It
lot
was
to.
exhausting and exhausting,
How
but
do
it
you
was,
even sleep? No time to sleep.
yeah. So it was a it was a training time for me, to understand that that's life, and you have to grow, you have to move on. So it was low, really. But the good news here is this, BC. The same woman that said that to me, after some time, we were drafted to present the morning show on OGBC together. And by the time we had the last show, when she was made a senior officer, she said that in all my years on radio, the shows I presented with you have been most impactful for me.
Oh,
The way
wow.
you
Wow.
approach your subject matters, your research, the kind of thing that you put on the table. Because I will go read newspapers, I will go write out. It wasn't the time of Android phone. I'm talking about 2006, 2007. But it
Mm.
was time when you have to go to the library and write out things that you want to do, research songs of different grades and bring them to your show, relevant songs, relevant issues,
Yeah.
and commended me. I mean, you are a star. She said, so, but she had forgotten that she nearly broke me. Really. So
Wow.
that's one very low time for me on radio. Another time would be, when the pay was really very poor, and
Mm.
I couldn't I couldn't
Make ends
do
meet.
I couldn't do things that I was supposed to do as a man. Uh, I was wondering. I mean, am I supposed to be here? Mm,
Mm.
should I just
When will I get rewarded?
yes
My
when
all
will
my
this
hard work, after all my
yes
hard work,
when
put
will
in
this
a lot of
thing
work.
yes when will this thing give me the real thing that I wanted? But as it is right now, it's getting better. We're getting better deal to what we
Will you
need.
say that you are in your season of reward of the many years in the
Um,
industry?
Maybe not as much as I wanted, but I'll say that now, if I now say I want to do certain things, certain services, I get a better offer than I used to get some time ago. Uh, you know, so for
Because
instance, if I want to do an MC now, I know that my billing is different from what when I started. If I
your
want to do
brand has grown.
has grown. So if I want to do voiceover now, voiceover for me will be something that I'll have to build better than I used to build. But also, yeah, we will get better as we move on, and the kind of places that we do this job will also determine what you get as well. But I would say that glory to God for the great mercies that I have received, on the job.
Thank you so much for sharing. You notice I've been writing. One of the
Mhm.
things I picked from your challenge, there's no glory without a story.
No.
There's no, oh, he made you. You are made. There's no you are made without a story somewhere in the background. So nobody just arrives made at a point in time. So one of the things I'm picking out from there is your resilience. And then for supervisors, in this industry, in the media industry, it is important for any supervisor who might be watching, who might just be watching this episode, to be kind in your feedback. Feedback should be positive. Um, there should be something positive about feedback and what needs to be better. The word is not the negative. The word is
Mm.
what can be better. So in our supervision as veterans, as leaders, as management in the media profession, we must ensure that we have the right feedback approach to our mentees, to those we are training, because the profession is all about mentorship and training for you to become a veteran in the long run, to become an expert and experienced practitioner. So I'm taking that out of your conversation. It is important that supervisors are kind and have the right approach, because the supervisee that is under training today is the one that you're going to be leaving the profession to in the future. We're going to be handing over. Nobody does this forever. They're going to
No.
be handing over. So that supervisee is going to come to to sit on the table you are sitting as management, as leadership. What would you want them to do? And I paint a picture. Should your daughter or your son or somebody related to you come under the supervision of that supervisee, how would you want them to treat your daughter who is now learning to
Yeah.
grow, your daughter or your son who is learning to grow in the profession? So let's be kind and have the right approach to feedback in the industry as we mentor others. And I like the one that says, in the place where you are not celebrated, leave the place. But what you did was you turned it around. In the place where you were not celebrated, you decided that you were going to be celebrated. And it was not just a confession or a quote. You put in the work. I think that criticism pushed you to move forward, right?
Yeah.
You put in the work to go the extra mile to research, to give it, so that in the place where you were not celebrated, you got celebrated and even recognized. So this is something I want anyone watching this episode that we've had with Oluwaseun Akinola to take away. There's a lot to take away from my conversation from this particular episode. I don't want to stretch it again, but remember, you're not just a broadcaster. You are a public communicator. Whether you are in the broadcast broadcast space, or the print space, or the digital space, we're all cutting across again. You are a public communicator. You need to put in the work. You need to be intentional, just like Oluwaseun Akinola has been in his career. He was clear about what he wanted. And then those tips about interviewing, I'm not going to roll all of that back, but again, you're interviewing. If you are hosting a show and you are the interviewer, take charge of your show. Ensure that you do not embarrass your guests.
Yeah.
Do not embarrass your guests. Keep them at ease. And there's a way to get the answer you are looking for without being aggressive eventually. And then I love the fact that you could manage an aggressive interviewee, an aggressive guest. There's a trick to it, which is what I heard in your conversation. And I hope somebody watching is going to take that away from the show. I want to thank you so much for taking out time to come on the Media Talks show series with me. I value your time, and I value this, time you've given to come and have this conversation, so that colleagues in the industry can evolve, grow, and modify. I see the amazing things you are doing. I see you driving the conversation on policy making, development, concerning governance. I see what the change and the impact you are having, and I wish you more success in driving this. And maybe one day you'll be part of policy makers. We never can tell. Anything can happen tomorrow. So we'll be happy to have you represent us, in the corridors of the policymakers, and just move up the ladder. So thank you so much, Oluwaseun, for coming on the show.
I hope that you know how much impact you are having on this broadcast space. Adebisi, thank you for all that you are doing. Thank you so much. I've been part of your journey, and I've learned a whole lot. It was a journey of discovery, working with you all these years.
Yeah.
And I've been able to learn a lot of things from interacting with you. So I hope that you know that someday you will be celebrated. Thank you very much, Adebisi.
Thank you so much for your words. I feel honored and humbled, and I hope to keep making you all proud. And like I say, the essence of this media talk show series is to inspire, motivate colleagues, media professionals from the digital, traditional media to be much more, to evolve, modify, and grow. So, like I always say, we are going to the top together. I am rooting for you. You can be so much more. Never give up on yourself. And until next time, when I come your way with another interesting guest, expert, peer on the job, veteran on the job, keep doing your best. Keep being intentional in your career and your personal development. Bye.
Bye.